Hi, this is Tim Shorrock. I was one of the people scheduled to read and talk yesterday at the Dylan at 80 extravaganza broadcast from the UK, but I screwed up the technology and so I didn't get on. But Constantine, one of the editors, was very kind and suggested that I make a video and talk about my essay, The Troubadour as Teacher. So that's what I'm going to do, just talk a bit about that. And but first, I want to say that, like Harry Hewitt, who appeared on the show yesterday, towards the end, I'm just a guy. I'm just a Dylan fan. I'm not a scholar or some great specialist. I am a musician. I've been playing, folk and jug band music since I was 12 or so, and love music of all kinds, but especially Bob Dylan. He's been a very important part of my life since I first heard a Dylan song in 1964. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs of my essay, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I mean by his education. Bob Dylan as teacher. As I look back on Bob Dylan at 80 years old, I'm most struck by his role as a teacher. That phase began for me in 1964 when I first knowingly heard a Dylan song. It was the visionary A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall, as performed by Pete Seeger in Tokyo, Japan, where I grew up. I was mesmerized, hooked for life, as Bob would write years later about the Italian poets he loved. Every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coal. Since the days of my youth, Bob Dylan has taught me a great deal about love, politics, war, culture, music, history, religion, and the full scope of the human condition, from kindness and nobility to treachery and plunder. His work will last for generations as a guidepost to our forgotten past and our uncertain future on this earth. Wasn't that a time, the Weavers sang, during the Cold War years when Dylan got his start? It was indeed. Now, as I write here, the first insights and education I got from Bob Dylan was about America itself. I'd grown up outside of America, like a lot of the contributors of this book. I was raised in Japan, where my parents went right after World War II as relief workers, missionaries. And so, everything I knew I got from the radio, from the pirate radio, as Bob Dylan sings about it in rough and ready ways. And I didn't really know very much, about the reality of America. And then, 64, I heard he was introduced to me by Pete Seeger, and I wanted to find out everything I could about him. And so it so happened there was a friend of mine who was Norwegian who lived in Tokyo and on the same university campus I was living, had been just in New York and brought back all of Dylan's records up to that point. And I sat in my room and I had taped them onto a reel-to-reel, Sony reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I sat in my room and I just listened to them, not knowing which album was which. And just these visions of America, started going through my head. And this was an insight into the reality, the underside of America that I didn't know much about at all. And so, songs like The Ballad of Hollis Brown, Hattie Carroll, Masters of War, they really, they opened my eyes to the reality of my own country, and they made me want to learn more and to investigate and find out what was really going on. And that's really sort of the beginning of my life as a journalist, which I ended up doing for many, many years. Reporting, investigative reporting. Mostly, mostly from Asia. I've written a lot about the military-industrial complex. I borrowed money. Doesn't talk, it swears, for my website, because I write a lot about the connections between money and politics. People make money from the military-industrial complex, and so Dylan was the beginning of that for me. And the other education I got from him was about American music. And in the essay, I talk about this one album in particular, World Gone Wrong, that he released in the early 1990s, where the album title, and another song that had come from the Mississippi Sheiks, this 1930s string band from Mississippi that I had never heard of. But he, in his liner notes to that album, which also included some really amazing old folk songs and blues songs that he grew up with. But you know, they talk. He talks, writes this great little essay about the Mississippi Sheiks, and it made me want to, you know, find out about them too. So I went and got all their records, and just want to mention that you can get their vinyl now on, you know, Jack White's record company. And they're really great, the old Mississippi Chic stuff. And, you know, it resonated with me because, you know, I actually knew some of the songs from my jug band days. But it's just typical the kind of music he opened our eyes to. And you know, another kind of music I want to mention is the music that I, you know, consider from the South. You know, the sort of New Orleans, Austin, Memphis circuit. Sort of the mixture of blues and R&B. And you know, he first introduced me to that kind of music when he made the record, and I think it was around 1972 with Doug Somm and friends. And you know, Dr. John played on it, and Augie Myers, other people that, you know, played with Dylan for a long time. And it's great stuff that I wouldn't have known about otherwise, I don't think. And then you know, later in life, you know, what 15 years ago or so, I lived for a while in Memphis, and I got to know Jim Dickinson, who was a great piano player, producer, and kind of rock and tour in Memphis and its music scene. And he was an old friend of Bob Dylan, going way back when they were young. And he did some covers of Dylan's that nobody else did, like John Brown, that Bob really appreciated, I think. But you know, from he knew all this Memphis music, you know, from visiting there and just drinking up American music. And you know, Dickinson used to tell the stories of how Dylan used to walk around downtown Memphis, you know, Overton Park and the Overton Shell late at night with his hood on, just to drink in the atmosphere of Memphis and you know, Elvis, and who started in Overton Park Shell and places like that. And until, of course, you know, Jim kind of warned him, like, maybe this is not the best thing for you to do late at night. But he understood the music of that region and played it, and you know, introduced me to so many of those people like that. And so I think, you know, together, just opening my eyes to the reality of America and opening my eyes to the incredible depth of American music, I owe so much to Bob Dylan, and that's what I really applaud him for on his 80th birthday and in this book. And I hope you all, you know, read the book and also listen to the stream from yesterday, because there's some really wonderful performances on it, especially by Scarlett O'Hara, Scarlett Rivera, and her incredible violin playing. And also Carolyn Hester, I really loved hearing her, because back when I was in Tokyo in my teens, that was one of the records I used to listen to. That first record, that one of the first records she made that had Bob Dylan playing harmonica on it. That may have actually been the first Bob Dylan I ever heard. So anyway, listen to the show from yesterday. And, you know, Bob Dylan at 80, you're still going strong. And I can't wait to see you with the anthem on December 2nd, almost 2 years to the day of your last concert where I last saw you. So thank you very much to the editors of this wonderful book, and to those who love Bob Dylan. Bye-bye.